Welcome to the Carnivore Cast, the podcast focused on the carnivore diet and lifestyle, with practical advice from successful carnivores, citizen scientists, and top researchers. I'm your host, Scott Meslinski, and I'm here to speak with experts and experienced carnivores to get answers to your biggest and meatiest questions while helping you live your best life as a carnivore. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on Carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Danielle is a graphic artist and a screen printer with 30 plus years of experience in graphic design. She's been a carnivore for almost a year and ate a standard American diet until she saw her husband, Brett Lloyd, former Carnivore Cast guest, lose 94 pounds through low-carb, high-fat, and suddenly she wasn't the skinniest person at home anymore in the summer of 2018. She began carnivory primarily to heal her shoulders and hands of painful arthritis and hopefully ensure she never comes down with Alzheimer's. But since she's lost 29 pounds, improved her body composition overall, resolved joint and skin issues, and more. Welcome to the show, Danielle. Happy to have you.
Glad to be here.
Great. Well, I would love to hear just, I gave a brief background, but a little bit more about your story, your health, things you've struggled with over the years, and maybe some things you've tried in the past.
Okay. Well, I hadn't really tried too many things. I was never a big fan of dieting, mostly because I felt that, like a lot of people, it was a question of how much one ate and how much exercise you got. Before I got into artwork, I was a ballet dancer, and so I was well acquainted with being a good physical shape. And I prided myself on that, but as I got older, it became more difficult to maintain that, more difficult to lose any extra weight I thought I had gained. And then, as the years go by, then it just becomes, you start wondering what is going on, especially since I have a lot of food allergies. I ate about 99.9% home-cooked whole foods. I don't have a big sweet tooth, and I didn't eat any junk. And so it kind of puzzled me how I could be put on weight and then have trouble losing it even when I was pretty determined to. And so when Brett started losing weight, it was kind of difficult on the one hand to watch. On the one side, I was proud of him, and on the other side, I was a bit jealous of his determination because it occurred to me that maybe that was just a problem. I just wasn't determined enough. I didn't try hard enough, etc. And I didn't want to give up my pasta.
Yeah.
In fact, I told him, if I can't eat pasta, I will probably starve, because that was my big weakness, was probably those kind of starches. I wasn't a big fried food eater, but I did love my pasta. Yeah. And I thought it was healthy. I thought it was good. I was wrong. We were all really, really wrong. And then when he started doing so much better, I don't know what point I should switch over to where you started with carnivore.
Well, you started low carb, high fat.
Yeah, no. Well, what I did after when he went carnivore, and now we had watched a lot of videos, Dr. Peterson, Sean Baker, and Nina Teichholz on Rogan, and some Amber O'Hearn, Amber O'Hearn actually what really made me think that this was worthwhile, the carnivore that is, was her talking about the evolution of the digestive system. I mean, that made sense to me, whereas all of the anecdotal stuff didn't really hit me as much because I didn't have any of these big problems. I had eczema, I had degenerative arthritis, and some other things, which I really thought were related to different issues than food. But seeing a logical reason why we should eat that way made sense to me. And then, of course, I did see how healthy Brett was getting. So I caved and said, okay, I'll go low carb. And it was my plan that that's all I was ever going to do was to go low carb. I would get my little thin slice of French bread and I would eat my cheese and I would, eat little of this and little of that. And what happened was I started losing weight pretty quickly, and I was rather stunned because I can eat very little if I want to, and even eating very little, and I have a very physically active job, I hadn't been able to lose weight before, and I was, I guess in retrospect, kind of kidding myself that I really only needed to lose about 10 pounds, but I dropped that 10 probably within the first, 3 weeks maybe?
Easily. Wow.
Yeah, I lost weight pretty fast at first.
Amazing.
And there's no encouragement like dropping that extra weight really fast. And so after a month, and in that month, I have to also say that I tried a bunch of stuff because I wanted basically to have my cake and eat it too. So I tried out that Icorn flour, and I was going to be doing all the keto people, you're going to recreate the stuff that you used to eat, only this time it'll be healthy and blah, blah, blah. And I came to the conclusion after about 2 or 3 weeks of doing that was just not feasible. That trying to recreate other recipes differently was a mistake, that you just had to realize that you were going to change the way you were eating and you were just going to have to kind of get used to it. And I was really, really paranoid about Alzheimer's after learning that really is caused by sugar. Right. And it was like a type of diabetes. So I gave up on all that and decided, okay, we're going to go carnivore. And I really thought it was going to be very boring, that it was going to be really expensive. And so in the beginning, we did eat steaks. I was trying to get cheaper cuts of meat, and we had steak and eggs and, different things like that. And we just kind of gravitated away from that because it was too expensive. And actually cooking steak every day for me is kind of a chore. We didn't have the gas grill that we have now and some other stuff. And Brett reminded me the other day what it was that prompted him to, I guess we just saw the roll of meat at Sam's and we got the hamburger meat, and then we just gravitated towards more burgers and bacon, and it really just does satisfy. And your taste buds change. You start liking stuff you didn't think you'd like before. You realize that what you ate before, it wasn't that it was really good. It was like pasta in and of itself is not good. It's what you put on it that's good.
Just
the cream sauces, the chicken, the sauce, Italian sauce, it's the meat that's actually the good part.
Exactly.
What's good about bread except what you put on it, the butter, the cheese or the liverwurst or whatever you put on it. And if you're honest with yourself, you realize that having your cake and eating it too is a rather childish way to look at food as your reward and that's a terrible thing that we're taught from when we're little, is that we should indulge ourselves, that food is a reward and it's going to make you happy. And of course it doesn't. And then once you're eating meat and your brain starts thinking like it ought to and working like it ought to, you start realizing these things, and everything becomes clearer. You sleep better, you make better decisions. I mean, our marriage it's like a miracle, really. Yeah. It's like a miracle. I mean, we can get into living with depression and stuff like that, but it's like a miracle. And there's just, what has been seen cannot be unseen, and we can't unknow what we now know, and there's no going back.
That's amazing. I'm so happy for you, Danielle and Brett. And I think you're inspiring others every single day to make those same changes. So you should be really proud. And I'm grateful for both of you and the great work you're doing. And there are a lot of things you said in there that I think are really profound. One, I think, you thought you were eating healthy. You were doing what you were supposed to do. Mm-hmm. You weren't, being a glutton or purposely disobeying what you knew to be healthy foods. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And then another thing I think a lot of people can relate to is just feeling like diets are unsustainable and they're a trap and you just can't do it long term, and seeing other people around you succeed when you're struggling over and over again with diets is just so debilitating, and frustrating. And I can't imagine what it must have been like to see Brett, just overcome with joy and success. And you want to be so happy for him, but at the same time, you feel bad.
One of the things about the, dieting or about changing what you eat, I think the hardest thing is just realizing the possibility of it. I think that's the hardest change to make for people wanting to go carnivore or wanting to go keto from a S.A.D diet, is they don't really believe it. And I think that was my problem at first. I didn't really believe it. I mean, in the very beginning, I really was just humoring Brett. This was, in the long run, this was just going to be a bunch of baloney. You have to understand, he'd been crazy for 20 years. He'd had a lot of ideas about all kinds of things over those 20 years.
Sure.
So here was another one. It's like, well, he had lost a lot of weight, but he'd also been walking a lot. And, he still had plenty of issues. And I thought, well, this isn't going to kill me, when I went low carb. And then you come to realize it. And then by the end of my month of low carb, he'd been carnivore for a month.
Wow.
And I could see the physical changes. And the biggest thing that hit me, maybe in my first month of carnivore, after you'd been carnivore a couple of months, he started looking younger. And I'm looking at him, and I was jealous. I thought, okay, this is messed up because I'm older than him, and I've always looked younger.
This is true. She's always looked younger than me.
And now it's like he was catching up with me in a backwards kind of way. And of course, all this time we're also watching more videos, talking to more people, reading more stories. And you start realizing, this is really something.
That's amazing. And, Danielle, I'd love to hear sort of the transition. People would be interested to hear what you ate at first, even in the low carb, high fat days, and then carnivore, and then kind of what you experienced first. Was it those 10 pounds coming off? Was it some of these other benefits you've experienced, and how did those kind of trickle in over time?
Okay. The very first thing, other than the weight loss, was the brain fog. My job is insane. I have to remember a million things, and then I do a lot of freelance work. So I always have a lot going on, and I have to make lists. I forget things. It's better now, though I still do forget things. But I also used to have a very hard time in the morning. And I wrote this off that I was a night person, which I still am. But I was not a morning person. I got up in the morning and I had to have 2 big mugs of coffee.
Right.
I had to have my coffee. And I had already kind of, bit the bullet and wasn't putting sugar in it anymore. But I put cream in it, or I put butter or ghee or whatever. And I didn't want anybody to talk to me even for the first hour that I was up, honestly. And Brett knew, just stay in your room, leave her alone. She has her coffee. And I got up one morning and I come in the living room and we're talking, and we're talking about 10 minutes, and he starts laughing. What's so funny? And he says, "You haven't had your coffee." And I realized that I had gotten up that morning. I was in a perfectly good mood, and I hadn't had any coffee.
That's awesome.
And now I eventually did give up the caffeine. I drink decaf now.
I need to interject something here. Two things. Number one, that morning when I realized that she hadn't had her coffee yet and what was happening, it was like a religious experience.
That was 2 weeks into carnivore.
Yeah. It was like, this is really going to be even better than I imagined. And secondly, the coffee thing came about because of when you had Andrew Graff on, and he was talking about how folks with arthritis shouldn't consume caffeine.
Yeah.
She was so convinced by that, she went decaf the next morning.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Back to you, dear.
Okay, let me regain in the beginning, the month that I was low carb, which honestly I would recommend to anybody who eventually wants to go carnivore or wants to do anything, to go low carb. So you get used to, not eating what you used to eat. And so you give your mind some time to adjust to the fact that food is not what you thought it was.
Right.
And so I didn't eat any sugar at all, which was actually a lot easier to give up. Sugar is like nicotine. When you give it up, after not too much time, for me anyway, it does start kind of grossing you out a little bit. I remember sometime after I hadn't had any, I think I found some either at work or in the house, and just on a lark. So I put a little bit in whatever it was that I was drinking. It was probably coffee or tea. And it was nasty. It was nasty. And I dumped it out and made a fresh cup with nothing in it. And, as far as, what else did I eat? I just ate regular meat, but I eat a lot of variety. I eat fish. I eat shrimp. I'll eat lobster if I can get it. I like steaks. I like hamburgers. I like chicken, pork chops, ribs, wings. I haven't had wings in a while though. I just make them for Mike, but, so I ate all of those things, and I just didn't eat any, bread other than a thin slice of bread. I allowed myself, that was like my little treat. And then after a while, it's just not worth it, and it's not necessary. And now if I want cheese or I need a cracker substitute or a bread substitute, I just use pork rinds. And, transitionally, the first thing really was the weight loss and the brain fog. Then, shortly after that, my eczema went away. And I've had eczema pretty much my entire life in one form or another. And they've labeled it everything from contact dermatitis to eczema or whatever. And, it's just been a plague. And it runs in the family too, which is why my whole family really should just be eating meat. But I haven't been able to convince anybody of anything. So that went in a lot of improvements on my skin. And the interesting thing about the weight loss is I wasn't losing weight how I had lost it in the past. And for a lot of women, I am sure that you tend to gain weight in certain places and you tend to lose weight in other places. And you usually gain where you don't want it and you lose where you don't want to lose it. And so it makes you all uneven. But I lost it where if I could have picked, that's where I would have lost it from. It's a very peculiar thing. Yeah. And I don't know if that happens with other people. I've seen a lot of pictures of women whose body shape has changed, who haven't necessarily lost weight, but they're becoming a more natural shape. And, after that, I don't know, that my shoulders had been really bad. And as a screen printer, I really felt that my career was in jeopardy and I was going to have to figure out something else to do. But that went away. My hands it's more slowly recovering, but I am printing every day for several hours. So some of it, I probably won't overcome it until I'm not printing anymore. I would.
Yeah. That's amazing. And, I think arthritis is super interesting. Both of my parents have it. And it's very debilitating for both of them. Prevents them from doing activities they love. They're in pain all the time, taking a lot of medicine for it. And, I really wish I could convince them to try keto, try carnivore for a longer period of time. They both have adopted it for very short stints, but always give it up.
I actually want to add to that thing about the arthritis. When I was dancing, I hurt my toe joint in my right foot, and I had 2 cortisone shots separately. And because I had what they call bone mice, so the joint disintegrated a little bit and some tiny pieces of bone were embedded in the tendon. And so I did not have a full range of movement of that joint. And that was the thing I noticed one day, was that joint didn't hurt anymore like a weather report, and that I regained the movement there. And that to me was really amazing, because I hadn't expected that. And also I had started having more problem with my hip, and I was concerned that I was going to end up with sciatica like my mother, who has it bad. And to the point where sometimes when I was walking, I couldn't even walk evenly because of pain in my hip. And that went away and really has not come back at all. Now, every now and then I've had some shoulder, but then it goes away again. It doesn't hang around.
That's awesome.
So overall, I mean, it's been really great.
Yeah, and a lot of people say you can't resolve joint issues, you can't resolve or relieve arthritis without losing weight. And I just see that as completely untrue. There are so many case studies of people on a carnivorous or ketogenic diet, low carb diet, finding joint relief, finding inflammation going down. Sean Baker talks about it all the time when he was an orthopedic surgeon, how many patients just, before they even lost any weight, they'd say, "Oh, my knee feels so much better."
I had x-rays done before because I was in so much pain at one point. I missed several days of work, and you can ask anybody, I do not miss work. And so I went ahead x-rays, and that was, their diagnosis. And they basically tell you this is never getting any better. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
And, I'm not going to go get new x-rays because I don't have the money for it, but it would be interesting to me to see what it looked like, if it actually looked different. Because the weird thing about the pain in my shoulders is it almost felt like it was coming out your muscles. It's a weird kind of pain, and I didn't understand that it was inside the joint, when it just feels differently than what it is. And you can get arthritis in different parts of your joint. But anyway.
Yeah. It's super interesting how many conditions are like that. It just starts, and the medical community assumes it will only be this or worse for the rest of your life. Diabetes, so many other things. And I'm curious, Danielle, how about the Alzheimer's piece? In the bio I read about you noted to make sure you never come down with Alzheimer's. How is that a factor for you?
Well, it's just something that I've always been afraid of. Maybe it's just I don't want to lose control of my surroundings. I don't want to be a burden to my family or anything like that. I read all these stories. I see what's happened to some people, some famous people. President Reagan and other people. And it's just so sad. We had a friend from church back in South Carolina whose husband had Alzheimer's, and we knew him, when he was ill, and then he eventually passed away. And it was just so sad, and it was so hard on his wife. And it's the saddest thing is that if it's preventable, if this is preventable with just diet, why isn't everybody eating in a way to prevent that from happening?
Yeah.
It's a horrible, ravaging disease. I think that's a lot worse than having to have your toes amputated. Stuff like that.
Losing your mind. It's terrifying.
Yeah, losing your mind. That's right. I think a lot of people are afraid. Yeah. Brett laughs. Yeah, you can lose your mind and still have your memory.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's not
it's just a scary thing.
That's not necessarily a plus.
Well, it's one thing when you realize, when you think, or everybody's told, oh, this is just like random, it might run in your family, you might not, you might get it, you might not, and everybody acts like there's anything you can do, but, we'll come up with some medicines. Maybe you can take this pill. I see advertisements on TV all the time for all these medications, and the side effects are horrifying. Almost all of them cause immune system problems. Just about all of them. So if they all cause immune problems, then that tells me that on the one hand, that they do know to an extent that these are inflammatory diseases.
Right. Yeah. Super interesting. And Danielle, And I think Brett has answered this question a million times on Instagram, but do you think you'll ever go back to eating the way you did before, or stop doing a carnivore diet?
I don't see myself ever stopping carnivore. I could see myself, maybe one time I'm going to eat some blueberries. Maybe one time I'm going to eat something else. If I'm sure at that point that it's not going to harm me.
Yeah.
I definitely want to go for a long stretch. I mean, I haven't even been, it's another, 2-3 weeks before it'll be a year. It's gone by pretty quick, but I think knowing how long the body takes to heal, I think that it would take a very long time to get over a lifetime of basically being at war with yourself on the inside.
Yes. Yeah.
By eating poison and things that inflame you and all this stuff. So you've been at war for, 50, 60 years. How long is it going to take to get over that? I mean, how long does it take to get over a stroke or a broken leg or surgery? It takes a long time to recover from things. So a year is not very long when you think about recovery. Now, maybe if one started when one was young, you would see results faster because you wouldn't be recovering from decades of abuse. But
that's so huge.
No, I don't see anything going back. I see learning what's better for me, and eating something where maybe the only side effect might be I don't normally eat fiber and now I'm eating something with fiber in it. I don't think I would worry too much about that, but I will definitely not go back to eating, for instance, grains, which I find rather horrifying when I think about them now, or sugar, or other things like that. And quite frankly, I've really lost my taste for a lot of those things. I think my only weakness now is still stuff like, yogurt and some of those, and stuff like that, which I don't eat it nearly as frequently as I used to. And I think over time, I can see the only thing I might stick with would be having cream every now and then.
Yeah.
I put a little in my coffee. I put a little in a cocktail, and that's about it.
Yeah. I think that point you made, Danielle, is so important, that people expect these changes to happen kind of overnight when they've had a whole lifetime of damage. And you kind of have to slowly unravel and undo that. People need to be patient. And, I think there's also an optimistic way to look at it, which is, even if you've experienced a lot of benefits of this type of diet or a similar diet, there may be whole new things that you don't know about that you'll feel even better about years from now. 5 years from now, all of a sudden you might be a superhuman.
There's so much we don't know. And I think one is being grossly unfair to oneself if you don't even give yourself the chance to, give it 6 months or a year to make any kind of judgment. I mean, what is 6 months or a year compared to a lifetime?
Exactly.
It's if you only give yourself a couple of weeks, that's really not fair to your body. Say, okay, let's get with the program. And, in this day of having to see instant results, instant gratification, got to know right now, you're being really unfair to yourself to not give your body a chance to respond to some changes.
Yeah, totally. I'm a huge fan of that. And how do you and Brett keep carnivore simple? Because I think this is something you do really, really well. Brett preaches it all the time, and it's a super important message for people. And I think in a world where it's great to have advanced science and advanced ways of doing carnivore, adding things like nose to tail, getting all your micronutrients, but there's a simple way to do this, and that's an important message for getting more people on board. So how do you do that, and what advice would you have for other people, other couples on a similar journey?
Well, I would say, first of all, that eat what you like. We started out by eating what we liked and what I could find on sale. And I also honestly was still in a bit of that mindset of where I had to have variety or I was going to get bored. So I wanted fish, I wanted pork chops, I wanted chicken, I wanted all these different things because I thought that that would help. But that actually ends up being a bit of a chore. More stuff in the freezer. Oh, wait a minute. I got to use this up because I bought that stuff I found on sale last week. So I got to make this. I got to make that. So I have kind of winnowed that down. I do still have stuff in there that I need to get rid of, so to speak. But honestly, if somebody told me, well, maybe you're going to eat fish once a month, or maybe you're going to only have shrimp once a month, and the rest of the time you're going to eat, chicken, pork chops, and hamburgers, and every now and then you're going to eat a steak, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Because the interesting thing is when you truly are hungry and you sit down with the food, it tastes great. There's been times where I made a hamburger because for whatever reason, I didn't have anything else defrosted or whatever. So I ate a hamburger and I honestly wasn't really looking forward to it other than it was something to eat. And then you start eating it and you're like, dang, this is good.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
Especially when it's got some nice, tallow melted on it. But, so basically now, and this is another thing, which is that Brett goes to the grocery store with me. Which is something which 5 years ago, that was never happening. That was never happening. I didn't want him there and he couldn't stand to be there. But now it's kind of fun. We know ahead of time what we're going to get. We have our kind of regular routine and we go down to Harvey's to get our nice box of the covered wagon bacon, and I'll get some pork chops if they have them on sale. And then, it's off to Sam's to get the tubes of meat and the box of the restaurant bacon. And it's real simple. And, of course, it's great that Sam's has dropped a bunch of their prices too, but, so I've kind of learned to get past this making it complicated thing.
Right.
Where I cooked a lot and I was a darn good cook.
She was.
And so I made all these things. I could get every pot in the house dirty. And I was always trying to one up myself and critiquing what I was making and all of this. And so it's taken me a little bit to let go of that and just not worry about it. It's something that I don't have to sit down and think of a new recipe or what am I going to do with the chicken breast this week that we haven't eaten 50 times before, because there was this underlying dissatisfaction with everything. You always had to go one better. You always had to try and find some different spice or do some different way of doing things, which now it's just, we got the meat and just get the meat on the table and everybody seems to be happy with it. And it is a lot simpler. I'm not spending any more money every week on groceries. We're spending more on the actual meat, but there's many things that I am not having to buy. All those side dishes, all those wasted vegetables, all that lettuce where I never could eat it all and it would go bad and then you throw it out, all that expensive fruit and, all these things. And now really all you need is like a stovetop, a grill and an air fryer and a microwave and like a couple of pans. I mean,
yeah,
we could, if I could, kitchens, how they are modern, design of kitchens designed to accommodate a SAD diet is totally wrong for carnivore diet.
Absolutely.
I would love nothing better to have rip out the whole kitchen and change everything.
We got cabinet space.
Oh, so much cabinets that's all devoid of everything. And that was one thing that I did do when, the month that I went low carb and I wasn't eating pasta and of course no seed oils and all this stuff. So we got rid of all that stuff. We gave it to the two girls that lived next door.
Vegetarians, we had liver vines.
Vegetarians next door. So we gave them all of this stuff. Then after the month of low carb was done, then I really cleared everything else out so that there wasn't anything in there. Although right now, honestly, I think in the very back of that very top cupboard, there is an old box of ice cream cones.
Oh, my gosh. We just lost our carnivore card.
Oh, no.
I saw them in there the other day. Well, that's like my liquor cabinet now. I have my bottle of vodka and my bottle of Irish whiskey in there, but that's about it. Now, that's one thing I do that I think a lot of other people don't, is I do drink. Those are zero carb alcohols, but of course they are alcohol. So I'm not sure what your body does with them, but I only ever have one drink in a day.
Yeah.
And so I make a fake Bailey's Irish cream where I have a shot of whiskey, an ounce or two of cream, the rest is cold water, and I put a dash of vanilla and a dash of coffee extract. And that's my fake Bailey's, and it's
nice.
quite delicious.
That sounds wonderful.
Or I have vodka with the champagne of water, sparkling water. That was the greatest investment ever, was a soda stream.
If you really want to change your life as a carnivore,
get a soda stream.
You got to get a soda stream.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Well, this has been really fun for me, and I think very helpful for a lot of folks, Danielle and Brett. I just want to end by asking, where can folks find out more about you? And I'll provide links in the show notes as well at carnivorecast.com.
Okay. Well, on Instagram, I am Carnivory Art Life. I also have a Facebook, Carnivory Art Life. I haven't fixed it up yet, but it's there. The blog is at artlife.us, and there's links to the store there. And I anticipate in the next couple of weeks, we're going to do a big change up on the shirts and get some new stuff in there. And I will start putting up some blog posts. Getting into social media as an interactive thing where I'm actually putting things up has been kind of tough for me, because I'm not really a extrovert type person like that, but it's very important to me that we get the message out. I feel for people when I see them in the store and on the street, and I want to go up to them and shake them and say, but you can do it. It's not hard. You can get healthy and you can feel good, and it's not hard.
It's true.
And both of us are always happy to give any encouragement to anybody that we can.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, and I'll definitely link to all those in the show notes.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate it, Scott, so much.
Of course. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on Carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Carnivore Cast. If you enjoyed this episode, please review on iTunes. It really helps us out. And share it with a friend. What questions would you like answered, or who would you like to hear from in the carnivore research community? You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at CarnivoreCast, or go to carnivorecast.com. You can also email me at info@carnivorecast.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep it carnivore.